From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubara.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Owando PLC denies allegation of receiving Ibori's assets, says shares belonging to former Delta State Governor is insignificant. NATI threatens to withdraw licenses of operators in the solid minerals sector over non-compliance with legal requirements. Governor Pabio says no debate over President Jonathan's intention to contest in 2015 elections, dismisses condition by dissenting PDP governors as misplaced. And 12 persons are killed in a mass shooting in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's oil exports declined 11% owing to oil theft.
And in sports news, Super Eagles of Nigeria battle for a slot at the Mundial in the last round of the World Cup qualifiers against Ethiopia.
Owando PLC has been reacting to the revelation that Mr. Ibori hid some of his assets in the company and money is being passed from the Owando account to Ibori's Swiss accounts. A 3-week confiscation hearing began at London's Southern Crown Court on Monday, where Sasha Wass, a British prosecutor, told the court that Mr. Ibori hid some of his assets in Owando and money is being passed from the company's accounts to Mr. Ibori's. Owando says a former Delta State governor does not own the company, but only has insignificant shares, which is just 443 out of a total issued and paid up share capital of 6.8 billion ordinary shares. Owando today, in a statement made available to Channels Television, says although unaware at the time, it had transacted business with a company now controlled by Mr. Ibori. The total amount of the transaction, Owando says, was $2.7 million, made in 3 separate transactions over a period of about 7 months. Owando, however, says this was insignificant considering the company's turnover of about $800 million as of 2004. The company has therefore denied any claims that Mr. Ibori has hidden assets with it and regrets that it has been dragged in the proceedings of the British court. Well, in other news, barely 18 months after the diplomatic face-off between Nigeria and South Africa, the federal government has begun the issuance of new vaccination cards for yellow fever, cholera and smallpox. The Minister of Health, Professor Nyebuchi Chukwu, who flagged off the event in Abuja, says the card, also to be known as International Certificate of Vaccination and Prophylaxis, will replace the old ones with effect from October the 1st, 2013. He added that the international travelers need not risk their trips with fake vaccination cards and should obtain genuine ones at the Public Health Department of the Federal Ministry of Health. The cards will also be available at the nation's ports, airports, seaports and land borders.
We thought it was important for the minister to also do a formal flag off as part of the sensitization and creating awareness. As minister, when I go on the street and I ask people, quite a number of Nigerians don't seem to appreciate that we have a new yellow card. And yet we have set a target of October, that by in October, that's just next month, the old cards will no longer be valid. And we don't want Nigerians to get embarrassed when they are traveling. So we want to ensure that Nigerians are aware and equip themselves with the new yellow card. However, the new one followed the issues that arose sometime last year about Nigerians traveling to South Africa. And we looked into the issue. We actually found that part of the confusion was that years ago, the National Council on Health, in their wisdom at that time, some decades ago, felt to make it easy for Nigerians to obtain it, they wanted to decentralize. So they now permitted state governments, even private sector, to be able to print their own yellow card and issue, as well as the federal government. But because there was no control, we found that there were gaps. So now, National Council on Health has reversed that decision and now says it must only be printed by the Federal Ministry of Health.
Minister of Health, Mr. Onyebuchi Chukwu. In spite of the successful transformation of Nigeria's payment system, a lot of advocacy is still needed to build an integrated financial system in the country. That's coming from the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Lamido Sanusi, who is confident that Nigeria will surmount all obstacles inhibiting the success of the e-payment system. The Minister of Communications Technology, Mrs. Omobola Johnson, also gave an assurance that rural areas will soon be fully integrated into the e-payment system. Our correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, reports.
Top government officials, key stakeholders in the economy and captains of industry at the International Conference on Payment System in Abuja. This is one forum to celebrate the successful reforms of the Nigerian payment system put in place by the Central Bank. But in spite of the significant achievements, the CBN governor underscored major hiccups that could slow down the economy if not speedily tackled.
You've got a number of challenges and we continue to fix them. Some of them have to do with operations of banks, some of them have to do with lack of effective communication and education, some of them have to do with poor infrastructure. It could be communications, it could be electricity, okay? And what our job is to continue addressing these issues.
What we need to do is that once we're sure that this is the right thing to do for the country, and we are, both the Ministry of Comtech and the Central Bank, we just keep moving on and ensure that we let people know what the benefits of this new system are, how it benefits the country, how it benefits citizens. And once we do that, I think that people will begin to come on board.
The Central Bank noted that governments and private businesses have for too long relied on cash to pay employees and fulfill other financial obligations. But with the reforms, instances of delayed payments is now a thing of the past. In spite of this, Nigerians continue to lay complaints about some of the reforms, including the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System.
The problem we have with IPs particularly is the problem of transparency. What we have most of the time where you have complaints is lack of or breach of communication between the agencies that manage those payrolls and then the Office of the Accountant General database.
Well, going forward, the Central Bank of Nigeria will be looking to chart a vision for the next phase of the e-payment advancement in Nigeria and, of course, create better opportunities for investment. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
From now on, licensed miners must comply with the legal requirements of disclosure or risk withdrawal of their licenses. A charge was given by the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative as it gets set to begin its 2011 audit of the solid minerals sector. The Executive Secretary of NATI, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, promised that the audit will be an improvement on the 2007 to 2010 initial audit report released last year, which revealed several discrepancies in the sector's operations.
The objective of this audit, like other audits, is to establish and make public revenue flows through investment among the major players in the solid minerals sector, but also to report on the quantities of solid minerals mined, quarried, processed, exported, as well as imported. The audit is expected to track solid minerals sector funds collected by various government agencies into the Federation account. Other objectives of the exercise include the reconciliation of the payments made by major players in the solid mineral sector in Nigeria with government receipts of the revenues during the period 2011. Let me use this media to remind all government agencies as well as extractive industry companies expected to be covered by this audit to fully cooperate with the audit process as required by law.
Well, President Goodluck Jonathan has asked other African leaders to now focus more on translating the economic growth experienced across the continent into improving living conditions for their people. The president says a continent's political independence can only be true if there is reasonable reduction in poverty levels, access to health care, good education, and employment opportunities. President Jonathan said this when he received Zambia's new High Commissioner to Nigeria, Lieutenant Colonel Bizwayo Newton Nkunika, in Abuja. To the South now. No debate on 2015 presidency. That appears to be the agreement of the different sides of the divide involved in the PDP reconciliation process, which was held on Sunday in Abuja. Well, the issue of 2015 is set to be top on the demands of the aggrieved governors and breakaway members of the PDP. A governor of Akwa Ibom State, though, Godswill Akpabio, has condemned the demand that President Goodluck Jonathan drop the second-term ambition. Speaking on the reconciliation talks, which have been shifted to October 7, Mr. Akpabio said that the issue has been settled and all parties have come to the conclusion that the ambition is a personal decision of the president and no one has a right to stop him.
On the issue of 2015, both sides agreed that it wasn't an issue for discussion because every single person has a right to have ambition. Some of the governors have ambition, like I have ambition to go to the Senate. And I mean, you can't discuss anything about another person's ambition. You're the only person that can discuss your own ambition. Ambition is personal. So both parties agreed to that. Then all other issues, we have put in place the methodology of settling them. And then, of course, it's a process issue. The process is on. And the process of settling, it was in the first place an internal issue of PDP. And so we are going to settle it internally. And if you want to know how it's going to be settled, then you have to leave being a journalist and join the PDP family.
From there to the lawmakers who for over 6 weeks have been on a recess are set to resume tomorrow, September the 17th. In this report, our correspondent Larry Lasise looks at some of the issues that will likely come up for consideration as they resume and how the recent political alignments and disputes in different political parties will affect their parliamentary duties.
National Assembly complex has been quiet now for over 6 weeks. Now, all that is set to change as lawmakers in both chambers are set to get back to work. But what will be the immediate issues they will focus on when they return?
Budget will be proper oversighting. Budget proceedings, have that been handled? Have that job implementation, contract implementation, have that been done?
There may be some communications from Mr. President on certain matters. We also expect that he will introduce within the first 2 or 3 weeks of our resumption the medium-term expenditure framework, which is supposed to be expected to be passed by in September.
The lawmakers were, however, divided on what impact the crisis within the People's Democratic Party and the emergence of the All Progressive Congress will have on the parliament.
This is politics. There will be alignments and realignments, and I expect there will be different group formations in the House, and that will affect, naturally, decisions in the House.
We have never, in the Senate, we have not in the Senate considered matters just only on the basis of political parties. We've considered it as Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, irrespective of political parties.
If they have followed their predilections, if they have followed newfound ideologies, if new things seem to be appealing to them now, they will reflect that in their contributions, in their positioning, and in the way they want to come across on the floor of the House.
Meanwhile, the spokesman of the House of Representatives had this to say when reacting to media reports of a possible impeachment threat against the president.
All that the parliament does, it is a product of discussions on the floor. The floor generates issues that are either impeachable or issues that are not impeachable. We have not sat or resolved on any issue bordering on that. So until we resume, and issues are looked at, that's why I say every issue will be looked at according to its merit.
Nigerians will certainly be watching to see how all this play out as the lawmakers resume and the National Assembly gets busy once again. Lanre Lasise, Channels Television News.
In part 2 after the break, following the return of relative peace to Yobe State, Governor Gaydam orders the reopening of primary and secondary schools. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.